Greg with IIoT World, and I am here with Fredrik Rydén. And Fredrik is the CEO of Olis Robotics. So welcome, Fredrik.
Thank you.
We're here at IMTS 2024 this year, so maybe we'll kind of kick the conversation off, Fredrik. What are some of the largest challenges, or larger challenges, if you will, that some of the small to medium-sized organizations face when they're considering adopting any type of robotics implementation?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there's so many manufacturers out there doing amazing things with or without robotics, right? So when you adopt that automation, not only do you need to be an expert on whatever part you might be making, but now you also need to become a robot expert. So the idea of adopting robots is that the burden should lower. The robot should be doing everything, but you actually find yourself sometimes in a worse situation where you need to be an expert on the business you were originally running, as well as an expert on the robotics sometimes. So that's what we're trying to do something about.
So it's an added level of complexity that you don't anticipate, right?
Yeah.
So maybe tell me a little bit more about the approach then that Olis has, for monitoring robots, as well as maybe some of the other operational aspects that people might not think about in an automation environment.
Yeah. So what the Olis device does, it sits on your floor in the plant. It connects just locally to the robot. There's no remote connectivity to begin with normally, and it just watches what the robot is doing. It watches what the controller is doing over Ethernet, but it also watches with video cameras. So you now have diagnostic data. So when there is a problem, it will take all of the data from the controller and store that to a snapshot. And it will also take the video recordings and put all that together. And if you want, that can be emailed out. So you basically get a diagnostic bundle or a snapshot of the event. And this is basically has everything that a robot experts need to diagnose what's going on with the cell and come up with a way to get it back.
Gotcha. I would probably be lax if I didn't bring up the nefarious characters in the world, from a cybersecurity standpoint. So what do you do to address the cybersecurity from an OT environment perspective?
We meet every end user where they're at in their IT journey. If you want to run your Olis device completely offline, that is perfectly fine. We don't depend on any cloud service, so we don't need that constant internet connectivity. If you want it to be offline and just get snapshots uploaded to your local server, or maybe you go in on the device and you download them and you don't email them out to the person who needs to get them, you can do that. If that becomes too cumbersome after a while, you can do some remote access solution, and we can work with any of the industrial routers on the market, and they're all certified, right? So there are commercial solutions out there, and you shouldn't replace them with Olis. In fact, you should run Olis over those services.
Got it. Well, what about the safety side of things as well? I know people always get a little bit tense sometimes. You're talking about having a robot operating in an environment with other humans. What type of precautions do you folks have to ensure safeguards to people that may be working in those areas?
Yeah, you should always be performing a risk assessment before you start up any automation cell, right? And we do recommend that Olis gets installed by some kind of certified robot integrator, right? And because the Olis device is subject to the safety policy of the underlying industrial controller, right? But it's relying on the fact that that controller is correctly configured, and the best way to do that is to hire a robot integrator and do that for you. Basically, the Olis device cannot override anything that the controller is saying no to. It cannot move the robot where it shouldn't be going. That would trigger e-stops and so forth, right? But it relies on the fact that that underlying controller is correctly configured, and like I said, you need a professional to do that.
I'll ask you to pull out your crystal ball a little bit. So what's in the future? What's your vision look like for Olis over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I'm really excited for this market. I think we're at a point now that the robots are easy enough to use. Software like Olis makes it easy enough to keep even the most complex cells running, right? So I want those end users to really go back to what they used to be doing. Not being experts on their process and the robotics, but just really focus on the process. And the robots, that's just infrastructure that works. Whether that's because it's some AI taking care of it automatically, or people managing remotely via Olis, it doesn't really matter. But I think ultimately the only decision that end users should have to do is the ROI there, and do we have the budget? And once all that is clear, it should just flow.
Nice, sounds great. Well, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you today, what's your booth number? I know your folks are here at IMTS.
I am in Universal Robots booth, and that is booth number
236131.
236131.
Great.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Or LinkedIn, Fredrik Rydén LinkedIn, or you can find Olis Robotics there as well.
Fantastic. Well, have a great show. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Fredrik.